Hello everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Socrata Open Budget, a closer look. I am your host, Bryant Lau, and I will be moderating today's discussion. Today's webinar is meant to be a very interactive discussion, so we look forward to your participation. If you look on your screen, you will notice that there are two areas where you can participate in today's webinar. At the bottom, there is a comment area called Discuss, and there's also a chat box in the bottom right. Feel free to enter any questions you have in either of those, and we'll be sure to respond to them during the presentation. Also, one last final note, there will be a recording available of today's webinar at a later point. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Clint Tseng, Project Lead for Socrata Open Budget.
Thanks, Brian. Hi, I'm excited here to talk to you today about Socrata Open Budget. If you saw our previous financial apps webinar, today I'm going to take a slightly deeper look at many of the same things that you saw last time. I hope it's informative, and I'm really excited to show you what we've got. All right. So today it's really important for governments to publish their financial data online. The budget is a really fantastic proxy for citizens learning what the government's priorities are. And the budget is a brutal look at exactly how everything's being laid out. This is traditionally how the budget is published online, however. It's a PDF. This is something where I have to read through 218 pages of information to really figure out what's going on. And if I really want to go through and just get the data that's here and figure out on my own terms what I want to learn, I can't really do that. On the other hand, this does a really wonderful thing, which is it helps frame exactly what's going on and helps describe the different decisions that were made. This is another way that budget and financial information find their way online. This is the White House's website. And here you can see that they have a whole bunch of these different tables, and they're available in Excel format. So if I happen to have Microsoft Excel, I could download these and figure out what they're doing. Unfortunately, these are very specific tables. I have to know exactly what I'm looking for in order to even know what table to download here. And once I do, it turns out that there's a lot of very domain-specific knowledge that I need to have before I could possibly use any of this information. So I don't really know what total outlays for grants to state and local governments is, but I'm sure it's very important information. Putting data online like this is a step better in the fact that people can come and actually get the data that they want in a machine-readable format. But you really need to, again, provide that context that's now missing for people to really understand what's happening. And you have to guide people to the information they're looking for. Here's another way that financial data finds its way online. This is a Socrata Open Data portal for one of our fantastic customers. They have their fiscal year 2014 operating budget here in a data set. As with any Socrata data set, I can scrub through this entire thing and figure out what's going on. Or, if I have a specific question, I can easily come here and answer it. If I want to know exactly how much money was allocated to each function for 2014, I can do that immediately. And if I then want to create some kind of a chart, that's really easy to do. Oops. There we go. So here we are. We're looking at a visualization of the budget. This is great. I can already see that public safety is getting a lot of money, $572 million. That's probably a good thing. But I, again, still kind of had to know what I was doing in order to get here. If I was just looking at this original table, it would take me a little bit to figure out exactly what all these different columns mean and what I wanted to do with all of them. At Socrata, we believe that data should find its way to citizens in a number of different useful ways. In fact, in as many useful ways as we can possibly think of. One of those useful ways is through the API. Every data set that's uploaded to our platform gets API enabled. Here's an example. This is that exact same data set. This is a machine-readable format that developers are going to love. It's in JSON, which is the most modern format for transferring data online. And it is in one of the more simple forms of JSON you'll ever find. There's simply a field name and a value for each of these different pieces of data. You can also see that we've taken great care in making the API very easy to manipulate. If I come here, you can see that I'm actually only looking at Health and Human Services data right now. And you can see I'm actually seeing quite a lot of it. But if I actually really just wanted to see transportation data, all I have to do is manipulate this parameter right here. It's human readable even to somebody who doesn't know how to program a computer. And you can see that now I'm getting just transportation data. If I feel like I'm getting too much, there are other parameters I can manipulate to get just the amount of data that I'm looking for. Through means like this, developers can come in and build really awesome, meaningful apps on top of data. You can already imagine somebody coming through and building something like this New York Times visualization for managing the budget. What am I going to cut in order to try to bring the deficit down? And making it available not just for the federal budget, not just for 2010, but in fact for anybody, for any year, as long as there's data online. This is the power that the API gets you. The developer doesn't have to come and update their app to suit a new year. They don't have to come and build a specific application for each customer. They can simply focus on building a fantastic application that tells a story, and we take care of the work of transferring it everywhere. But developers often don't have the time to build a full-fledged application that really digs deep into the budget. You'll get a lot of these kinds of visualizations and tools which are extraordinarily useful, but they don't really tell the full story in a meaningful way. We believe at Socrata that telling the story of data and giving the full context around data is extraordinarily important. And that starts really by looking at the user and what the user is looking for. So we took a step back from everything that was out in terms of visualizing and viewing the budget. And we decided to analyze things in a way that we typically design stuff, which is in a user-oriented fashion. I'd like to show you a little bit today about our design process and exactly how we got to the app you're about to see. Here you can see that we kind of took everything that we knew about what people wanted to see about the budget and broke it down into 3 different sort of user groups. We actually have our own internal names for these, but I've for now translated them to things that you might understand. So the resident has these goals of understanding where the money comes from, where the budget comes from, but also just understanding how the budget works. Not everybody knows how the budget works, what the difference between a capital budget and operating budget is. Not everybody knows what a fund source is. So that is actually a critical thing that we decided a user needs to be able to do in order to use this application. If we move on to the advocate, we can see that they're more interested in specific things like how my community is impacted or how programs I care about compare to others. And if we get down to the analyst, now we're really in the weeds, where the analyst wants to see budget differences over time and analyze the effectiveness of the money we spent. This is where we started. We didn't start from what data do we have. We didn't start from what's the cool visualization we could build. We didn't start from what's the technology we have. We really started from taking a look at what users actually need and went from there. The next step was to take these goals and try to figure out some kind of a design that would fit these goals very well. We went back and forth on this, and eventually we came up with this low-fidelity prototype. You can see that here we've just sort of sketched out the barest ideas of what we were trying to do. You can already see details like the specific visualizations we wanted to try and exactly how these different pages would tie together. And using this, we went out and user tested with different people to try to figure out if we were conveying the information we needed to in a meaningful way. So that's how, in a very brief sense, we ran our design process, and we arrived at the application we did today. Again, we think it's important to consider this sort of thing. Without further ado, I'd like to show you the actual application. Here you can see that we have an application for the County of New Alexandria. And you can see a number of things already here. First, I can already get a sense of what's happening and learn what's going on with the budget. So here I can see that $2.17 billion are part of the operating budget, and that provides funding to keep the county's ongoing programs running. Whereas $6.41 billion are active in the capital budget, and those go towards one-time infrastructure improvement projects. So already I'm getting a sense of, wait, hold on, there's 2 concepts of budget going on here. And if I try to drill into one or the other of them, what am I getting myself into? You can also see that we've got this shiny map up here. This map shows all of the different capital projects that are ongoing in the county right now. So if I'm really interested in what's happening with this fire station that's right near where I live, I can click on that right now and get there. People want to do this because people really relate to the world in this spatial sense. Everyone wants to know what's going on in their backyard. And being able to do this provides a really great way to drill into the information that most matters to me. I can see that, oh, I didn't know that this fire station existed because it's still in preliminary design. And if I want to know, I can find out that this project provides stuff in the vicinity of MD 355 and Clarksburg Road. I can also see information over time. So here you can see that this project is purely funded by GO bonds. We'll get more to that later. But down here you can see, okay, well, I'm going to get no real progress on this project for the next few years. But you can see that they're planning on probably having a lot of the activity happening right around 2020. So if I was feeling really unsafe about having a child in my neighborhood because there wasn't adequate fire coverage, maybe I feel better about that now in the next few years. But let's take a look at exactly how we got to Clarksburg Fire Station. We always believe that you have to provide a sense of where you are when you're using any kind of software. Here you can see that this R is a representation of what I'm looking at right now. If I hover here, you can see this is the entire capital budget. And this little slice right here is public safety. It's 4.13% of the capital budget. And moving down from there, you get fire and rescue is about half of that, it looks like. And finally down here, this little sliver is Clarksburg Fire Station. And that's everything that's active for it right now. And that's 0.44% of the entire active capital budget. So I can easily see right here now exactly what I'm looking at and relatively how important is this thing to the county. Let's go and actually follow that path down and see where it leads us. Here we're back on the home page. And you can see I can drill into public safety here. And we're literally drilling into the budget right now. I can keep drilling down, and it basically dives into more information on the budget. I can also find out some more details. Here's another map like we just saw. This is just the 5 rescue projects instead of all of them. I can also get a map of the money in fire and rescue distributed over the different council districts in my county. So here you can see that if I live in districts 2, 3, or 4, I'm feeling better about how much money is being spent than if I'm in districts 1 or 5, which is nothing. I can also come and take a look at exactly where the money came from. Here you can see that for fire and rescue, all of the money came from local sources. So that's basically money that came from within the county. And almost all of it came from GO bonds. There are also some amount of money from Fire Consolidated and some other sources, and these all go towards the total. This is an example of where we were very careful of the kind of visualization we chose. A perfect pure data visualization here actually doesn't involve circles at all. It's a rectangular diagram that shows a hierarchy over time. But we believe that these circles and these arrows help better convey to a general user exactly what's actually happening with the money here and how money goes from the funding sources to their eventual destination. If I come up here and I take a look at a larger category, we'll even see that sometimes money comes from non-local sources. In this case, it comes from state aid. This really helps me understand exactly what's going on and where money comes from and how that influences and impacts the kinds of projects that can be taken on in my area. There are a lot more things I could show you. I'm going to wrap it up with just a couple more here. So in the operating budget side, you can see here I can get sort of information over time again. But where things really get interesting is if I want to take a look at what was attempted versus what was sort of accomplished. So for example, here I can take a look at what was proposed. And this is what the county chair proposed for the budget for this particular year. And you can see that hold on. All right, you can see that I can compare over time what was proposed by the county chair versus what was actually approved. This is a very interesting thing because this is basically the different checks and balances of my government working. Here you can see, for example, human resources was recommended for $8.6 million. This means that somewhere between their own executive office and the county chair, they decided that $8.6 million was probably what would be necessary for that department to run in this particular quarter, or in this particular year. However, they were only approved for $4.44 million. If I was working there, or if I was very interested in human resources, I might want to drill in more on this and figure out what's going on. So I could do that. And now I find out that for some reason, occupational medical services was recommended for $7 million and only got $1.3 million. Something's clearly going on there, and this might be the point at which I start calling people and trying to find that out. There are a lot of different ways to browse this information as well. If I want to look at this information alphabetically, I could do that. Or if I just want to see the biggest difference between what was recommended versus what was actually approved, I could do that as well. For some reason, business operations or performance, I can now see, was recommended for not even any money at all, negative $944,000. This is a quirk of how counties account for their budget. But they were approved for $460,000. So there are a lot of different ways to look at the budget, and this is just a number of them. We believe that we've done a really fantastic job here of not just showing what is in the budget, but teaching people what's going on and guiding people to the answers that they're looking for. So without further ado, Bryant, if there are any further questions.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a few that are coming in. I would just like to take a second to reiterate to our audience that this is meant to be a very interactive session. So at any point, if you have any questions that you would like to ask Clint, project lead for our new Open Budget app, please feel free to ask those questions. There are two ways you could do that. There is the discuss comment box at the bottom of the page you're currently viewing, and there's also a little chat box, the red chat box in the bottom right. Feel free to enter any questions in either of those, and we'll be sure to address them during today's presentation. Without further ado, we do have a couple questions that already came in. First of all, how easy is it to implement this app in its current state?
Really easy. The one trick is you have to have your data in a prepared format, but because financial data is so important and it's important to be rigid about it, we haven't really seen any problems with that just yet. Once you have the data in a prepared format, it's just a few hours of engagement with us before we can get it all set up.
What exactly does prepared format mean?
We do have a standard schema that we're looking for the Open Budget application. It's important for that to happen, for this application to run, but we also think that it's a very useful thing for, like I said earlier, API developers who are looking to try to build an application that can work in many places. If the data is in a standard format, suddenly we can start reusing these different visualizations and talking about, with careful, measured understanding of how budgets differ, talking about how we can start comparing different budgets and figuring out what's going on across different municipalities and states. So
through standardization, we can start to actually compare different districts and see what's going on and actually find.
Exactly.
That's awesome. That's great. We do have another question. Does McGovernment need an open data portal already to get started with this?
Yes, you do. Part of what happens is that the Open Budget application is actually built off of the same API that any other developer would use. We trust it that much, and we've made no special cases for ourselves. Because of that, though, it needs to be able to talk to an open data portal in order to use its API. If you don't already have an open data portal today, then we would highly recommend that you set up both at the same time, and really this financial data would become sort of the centerpiece of your new portal.
Okay. So we do have a question about what has been the feedback from both government and citizens so far that have seen the app. Just to kind of fill in our audience, we did release this app about 2 weeks ago, I think it was, originally with the first webinar launch, maybe 3 now. Closer to 3 weeks now. And now that it's actually been live for a few weeks, we're starting to receive some feedback. So Clint, could you kind of comment on that and what we've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been one of those interesting things where we're getting the feedback we hoped. Some of it is constructive criticism where we've needed to do something better, but on a general sense that it's always curtailed with this is amazing. This is like a completely different way of building a application for the government or government data or conveying things to citizens that nobody else has really gotten quite this far. And the kinds of places this feedback comes from has been like a little surprising to us in some cases, where even people working in the government are like, wow, this is amazing, like this will help me do my job. And they're the ones that are like building this data out and using it on a daily basis, right? So the fact that we can have that kind of impact even inside of the government is really gratifying.
So we do have one more question that came through. And again, we originally allotted until 10:30 for any questions, so if anyone in the audience does have any more questions, please feel free to ask those. Question is, can you share the specs for the schema that Socrata is expecting?
Yeah, absolutely. That's available, and if you would like to see it, all you have to do is contact us and we'll get it to you so you can take a look.
Is it a pretty standard format for how governments typically publish their
data?
Yeah,
we've been working with customers that have a variety of different backend systems, everywhere from Oracle to PeopleSoft to Microsoft, any kind of stuff. We've seen a lot of them so far, and so far we haven't had too much trouble sort of mapping that ERP information out into our schema. So.
And typically, what is the involvement expected from a customer to implement this? Like, what is expected from their end to implement this solution? You mentioned earlier it's just a couple hours on our side.
Yeah, I mean, if we can get the data in a clean format, then really all that's needed is, we will run through and make sure that you're extracting things in the way that's necessary, and that there aren't surprises in your data, like private information that shouldn't be leaked that you're showing through. And then other than that, it's just preparing some content for the homepage and the about page to sort of describe what's going on and provide whatever context that the customer wants. It's all up to what makes the most sense for each customer. So.
Okay. Let me see if we have any more questions here. Is there a function that allows a user to see what portion of his/her tax bill is going to each budget area?
Yeah, that gets a little tricky. It's a request that we've gotten a lot, and it's definitely on our list of things that we'd love to look at. But the volume and magnitude of data that is necessary to really get to that point is quite a bit further beyond. So that's definitely something that we'll be looking at in the future, not today.
Okay. It looks like we have answered all the questions we have so far. Clint, would you like to take just a couple minutes to kind of comment on our overall app strategy a little bit for people in on that, and kind of what some other apps they can expect coming down the line?
Yeah, absolutely. So today you saw Socrata Open Budget. This is sort of our first shot at building a financial app, and we're only going to be improving them moving forward. We learned a lot of different things building this application. Right now we're focusing on building a suite of financial transparency apps. As I said, finances and how the government budgets and spends its money are the absolute most transparent way to see what the government's priorities and functions are. So we're focusing on building those out. So after Open Budget, you will see Open Expenditure, which is basically a look at the ledger of a government organization, what they're actually spending money on. Being able to break that down by, for example, what kind of expense was it? So if you want to see everything that people spent on motor pool versus everything that people spent on salaries and wages, you could do that. Or you can break it down by vendor. So if you want to see who the highest paid vendor for office supplies is, you can do that as well. So that's Open Expenditure that's coming up. After that will be, we're not fully settled on the name yet, but it will be an application that's about contracts, basically. So the contracts that the organization has with different vendors, and these get really interesting because you can basically take a look at the different contracts that are open for the same thing across different different sub-organizations, and how they might go about saving money by consolidating those, or who's spending against these contracts. So those are the ones that we have immediately on our radar.
Okay. So we do have a follow-up question to the earlier question about a schema that we were expecting for this. Yeah. It says, do you have a standard for the narratives that were being demoed?
For the narratives that were being demoed?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I fully follow. I mean, the schema is basically set up so that we can provide that navigational experience that I showed today, and we can provide the kinds of comparisons that I showed today. So that's what the schema is for, and that is kind of what we would probably consider to be the narrative of the application, is having that data enables that kind of navigation and drill down. If we're referring to sort of more the free-form content that is free to be manipulated, that's free to be manipulated. You could put videos in there, you could put text in there, whatever suits.
Okay. Well, I believe we've answered all the questions that our audience has for today. If anyone has any others, please feel free to, again, use the comment box at the bottom of the screen or the red chat box within your window. I would like to take this time just to comment on, we have a couple other webinars coming up that we invite you to attend and look forward to your attendance. One is on May 15th. It's called Making Government Wallets Transparent. It's actually on our Socrata.com page if you'd like to take a look at that. And I believe that will be featuring Montgomery County as a guest, and we'll be able to kind of catch up and understand where they have gone now that we have launched the app for a full month at that point, and really get some of their insight and feedback on how they are using it and what their goals and expectations are for the app. We also recently launched a weekly webinar, again, that can be found on our Socrata.com page, about just an introduction to the Socrata platform in general. So if you have any other questions just about the platform in general, please feel free to register for that as well. It looks like we don't have any more questions that have came in. So we'll just take one more look here. Yep, I think we're good. So we'll go ahead and end the webinar just a couple minutes early. I would like to say thank you for attending. We will be sending a link to the recording of the webinar within about an hour or so to everyone that registered for it. And we look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Thank you again, Clint, for your demo today. It was amazing. And we'll talk to everyone later. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.